As we're right on the cusp of Phase 1 of LA Metro's D-Line extension opening, it seems like a good time to contemplate the line's future. A fair bit of that contemplation will focus on how quickly Phases 2 and 3 will be built. But Phase 3 will only go as far as the VA hospital in Westwood, which is a massive improvement from how things were pre-extensions, with the D-Line only going to Wilshire Western. However, it will still fall far short of where many transit advocates ultimately want the line to go, which is all the way out Wilshire Boulevard until it gets to near the Pacific Ocean. Hence, the idea of such an extension often being dubbed the D line to the sea. But, should the D line head to the sea? I will outline some thoughts in favor and against that idea, and then I'll give my own opinions later in this video. One argument against such an extension is that the D line on Wilshire will only be about half a mile or so from the E line over in Santa Monica. And that, with the relatively small gap between the Wilshire corridor and the E line, attention should instead be on other parts of LA County that are underserved by transit. I think there is some credence to this argument, as between about 17th Street and Santa Monica and the ocean, Wilshire is only about half a mile from the E line. However, east of 17th Street, the E line only gets further and further away from Wilshire. By the E line's 26th Street Bergamot stop, you're 7/10 of a mile away from Wilshire. And by the time you get to Expo Bundy, you are 1.2 miles away from Wilshire. So, if LA Metro were to extend the D line to the sea, there are some parts of an extension that would be decently far from the E line, and other parts that are rather close. Another argument in favor of extending the D line to the sea is that such an extension would serve the most densely populated parts of Santa Monica. As popular as the E line is, it actually doesn't serve the most densely populated parts of the city. The most densely populated census tracts over by the E line in Santa Monica have somewhere in the neighborhood of 14,000 people per square mile. In contrast, the Wilshire corridor in Santa Monica is much more densely populated, with a couple of census tracts there exceeding 20,000 people per square mile. Though, despite serving the most densely populated parts of Santa Monica, a previous estimate was that such an extension was only expected to bring an additional 9,000 riders west of VA Hospital, per this Urbanized LA article. Considering how expensive it is to build subways nowadays, 9,000 riders for 4 additional stops seems a little questionable. I would like a little better return on investment than that. Though, I wonder whether that estimate considered a possible Sepulveda line and the impacts the Sepulveda line would have on the D line. Because, if not, the 9,000 riders for 4 additional stops may be lowballing it, as well as this possible extension a decent amount. But now that I've outlined some pros and some cons, I must circle back to the original question. Should the D line go to the sea? And the answer is yes, albeit not an enthusiastic one. Here's why. I think it would be a useful and good extension to have. It would provide heavy rail to the most densely populated part of Santa Monica, after all. And it would ensure that the entirety of LA's most important transit corridor has a subway. And yet, in an ideal world, I also think a higher priority than this should be focusing on closing gaps in the LA area rapid transit network much larger than what exists in Santa Monica. When it comes to heavy rail specifically, a Vermont Avenue subway and extending the proposed Sepulveda line to LAX should probably be a higher priority than this. That said, the world isn't ideal. In the world around us, what often determines what does or doesn't get built is not what is most needed, but what is politically achievable. I mean, if what got built was based on what was needed rather than on politics, the D line then wouldn't have looked like this, pre-Phase 1 extension. Anyone who knows anything about the LA area knows that Wilshire Boulevard is the city's most critical corridor, and that if not for politics, the D line would have been more built out to begin with. That said, in the spirit of my believing that the D line should eventually get to the sea, my Metro Dreaming map for the LA area will include a D line extension. After all, I'm not saying that this shouldn't be built at some point. It should be built. I just think that there are some other things that should be prioritized before this. But what do you think of extending the D line to the sea? Let me know in the comment section below. Make sure to also like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content on imagining better mass transit in the United States. Thank you and have a good day.